Good morning. It is Wednesday morning. I think it's the 20th of May. We met as leadership last night, our elders and our deacons, and we determined some starting plans. And so Sunday morning at the live stream on our service, I'll be sharing those plans with you if you're interested. I hope you're interested. So you'd like to be wealthy. Everybody likes titles. So that's the title of the message this morning. Devotions, whatever you want to call them. So you'd like to be healthy, or no, wealthy. So I walked into the store. It's been a long time ago, but I walked into a store. It was a country store. And there was this giant jar, one of those 1-gallon jar of cucumbers, and they were rather large. And I looked at them and thought, wow, they look so good. And so I bought one, and they were pretty expensive. I don't know, $1.50 for a cucumber, and I got it, and I was so excited. I took a bite into it, and I almost threw up. It was horrible. It was terrible. It's not what I expected. And this morning, somebody should put a warning label on wealth. Wealth will not do what you think it will do. And so I think Solomon loves his people. He wants to clue them in. And some people are saying, you know what? I want to be wealthy. Wow, I want to be wealthy because that's the answer to everything. Then I'll be happy. And what Solomon does is, he says, oh, you want to be wealthy. You might say, well, I'm not wealthy. And that's not the question. Would you like to be wealthy? And I can't see your face right now, but most of us would say, sure, I'd like to be wealthy. We dream of having lots of stuff, just a little bit more. We'd like to go the places we'd like to go. We'd like to do the things we'd like to do. And we'd like to buy stuff without having to look at the price tags. Most of us do look at the price tags. Some folks don't, but that's whatever. Pirates, prospectors, lottery winners, gamblers, sweepstakes centers, they have a passion. They just want a little bit more. But wealth does not heal diseases. Wealth does not reconcile relationships. Wealth does not provide job security, and wealth does not ensure happiness. So I think Solomon would say this morning, hey, if you want to be wealthy, you better think twice. Think of the consequences. Think of what it's going to taste like it looks good in the jar. It's just like that cucumber. It looked good in the jar, but when I bit into it, it's not what I expected. And so this morning, just a couple things that wealth cannot do and one thing that it can do. We're in the book of Ecclesiastes. I'm reading out of my NIV this morning. But wealth does not provide the lasting satisfaction for which we long. Wealth will not provide lasting satisfaction. Well, who says so? Solomon. Solomon says so. There's nobody in my listening audience, unless there's somebody accidentally tuned in. There's nobody in my listening audience this morning that is wealthier than Solomon, okay? And understand that. And so he has every right. He has a platform. He can say, you know what? Wealth won't cut it. It will not give you the lasting satisfaction that you so desperately desire. And we're in chapter 5, verse number 10. Let me go ahead and read. The teacher ponders the pitfalls of the wealthy. There are some problems going along with wealth. In verse number 10, whoever loves money never has enough money. Whoever loves money never has money enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. This too is meaningless. It's empty. It's futile. Those who love money never seem to have enough. They're never really satisfied. They always just want a little bit more. In verse 11, he says some other things about wealth. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owner except to feast his eyes on them? And I laugh at these things because, what is he saying there? Well, those who have accumulated wealth discover that they suddenly have more friends and more relatives than they've ever imagined. And so I've never wanted to win the lottery. That would be a problem because as soon as I've won the lottery, and I don't play the lottery, okay? But as soon as if somebody wins friends and relatives than they can handle. Solomon says, you know what? The more money you have, the more friends and relatives you find out you have. The wealthy seem to have a difficult time enjoying what they have, other than feasting their eyes on all their stuff. And so the wealthy have a difficult time enjoying what they have. In verse number 12, the sleep of a laborer is sweet. That's the guy who works, who sweats, who comes home weary and tired and eats supper and takes a nap. The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether he eats little or much. But the abundance of a rich man permits him no sleep. And so the rich man, he normally is not tired. He's been out goofing around all day. He's got an office job. He's sitting on his can, for lack of a better word. The wealthy have difficult sleeping, either because they are concerned about acquiring, protecting, or maintaining their wealth, or they have indigestion from rich food. But some rich people have a difficult time relaxing, sleeping. The wealthy person often hoards stuff to his own physical detriment. Verse number 13. Solomon says this, I have seen a grievous evil under the sun on the stage on which we live out our lives. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owner, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when he has a son, there is nothing left for him. And so what he's talking about is the wealthy person hoards all this stuff, and he doesn't enjoy it. He can look at it, but that's about all. In verse number 14, the wealthy may lose everything they have through an unanticipated turn of events and leave no inheritance. And so that's the problem with the son. He doesn't have anybody to give it to. And so think about it. Think about it. The wealthy often hide their sorrow. The wealthy often hide their superficiality, their loneliness, that their lifestyles engender. Wealthy people are not necessarily happy people. And you say, well, you're only saying it because you're not wealthy. That's not true. That's not true. Solomon says, just because you're wealthy doesn't mean you're happy. Just because you're wealthy doesn't mean you're happy. And if your goal is to be wealthy, you're gonna take a bite out of that wealth, and you're gonna find out what you thought it was, and you're gonna be heartbroken. We move on. And the teacher ponders the plight of every human being in verses 15 through 17. Let me read that in a second. Everyone steps onto the stage of life with nothing in his hands, and we exit with the same. What's that? Nothing. Verse number 15. Now, Solomon, you know this, but we don't behave like this, okay? We accumulate all these things, and we put them in our little basket, and we expect maybe to take it with us. Naked a man comes from his mother's womb, and as he comes, so he departs. He takes nothing from his labor that he can carry in his hand. We know that. So accumulating all of this stuff, why would we do that? Death will ultimately dispossess all men. Death is a spoiler, and that is true. Death is a spoiler. It messes everything up. I'm hoping to get till I'm 80, okay? I'm hoping to enjoy life, but I know that for the pursuit of wealth, according to Solomon, that's not going to help me enjoy life. Well, a little bit maybe. Just a little bit more, okay? Verse 16. Here we go. And Solomon is very realistic. This too is a grievous evil. As a man comes, so he departs. And what does he gain since he toils for the wind? That's what he does. The wind comes and it carries us all away. This is a sickening catastrophe, Solomon says, particularly for those who have refused to factor into the equation of life. And so Solomon looks at this and says, this is a grievous evil. The word evil can sometimes be translated calamity. This is a horrible calamity. And Solomon points this out to us. Verse 17, all his days he eats in darkness. That doesn't sound like much fun. With great frustration, affliction, and anger. When this poor unfortunate soul finally realizes the truth, that wealth doesn't give him happiness, a cloud of gloom, anger, frustration, and bitterness hovers over his head. It is better to recognize the truth now than later. Solomon is just trying to warn his people, his kingdom, that he loves dearly. Everybody looks at Solomon, and he's got everything. He's got everything. Anything you could ever desire, he's got it. And everybody looks at Solomon and thinks, you know what, I want to be happy. I want to be happy like him. Just because you've got all the wealth in the world doesn't mean you're happy. I wish wealthy people and popular people and powerful people would at least be honest and tell us the truth. Are you happy? And I think if they were honest, they would say, I really will. I plead the fifth. I don't want to answer that question, because many of them would have to say, no, I am not happy. Now, wealth, when seen as a gift from God, can bring joy. I like it. Right in the middle of our passage here, we find this. Then I realized that it is good and proper for a man to eat and drink, just the normal things of life, just having life-sustaining goods, and to find satisfaction in his toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given him. See that? It's a gift of God. For this is his lot. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and be happy in his work, this is a gift from God. And what is he saying? He's saying, well, it's not the wealth that ruins the wealthy. It's not the wealth, it's his attitude toward wealth. If he is counting on his transient wealth to give meaning to life, disappointment ensues. He will be disappointed. But if he considers that wealth is a gift from God, he can enjoy it and its benefits and find satisfaction in life's simple things. Again, I have choices. You have choices. I can be happy in the things that God gave me and rejoice in those, or I can continue on the treadmill in pursuing wealth. Solomon says, he says, you know what, if you're looking for happiness and wealth, you won't find it. You will find it only in accepting and giving thanks for the things that God has given you as a gift. Verse number 20, chapter 5, he seldom reflects on the days of his life. This is the man who's satisfied. He seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with gladness of heart. He doesn't think of the miseries. He thinks of the things that God has given him. If I focus on what God has given me, and instead of what I'm groping after and want and desire and wearing myself out to get, you know what? I'll enjoy life. I'll appreciate the things of life. In fact, we're going to see something that's really unnerving in the next few verses. Wealth does not get it should. In verses 1 and 2 of chapter 6, the teacher makes another disturbing observation. Watch this. I have seen, Solomon says, I have seen another evil or calamity under the sun, and it weighs heavily on men. This is a heavy thing. God gives a man wealth, possessions, and honor. So God allows him to have wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing his heart desires. He gives him everything he wants. God, everything is a gift from God. Every good gift and every perfect gift comes from above. But God does not enable him to enjoy them, and a stranger enjoys them instead. I don't laugh because it's funny. It's like people do these kind of things. This man has everything his heart could desire, and you know what? He doesn't have the ability to enjoy it. His observation is one of those disconcerting realities of life. Everyone sees it and has the same frustration. Here's a rich man. Here's a wealthy man. You know what? He can't even enjoy the stuff that he has. There are a lot of folks like that. I've met them. You know them. God gives a man everything he could desire to make him happy, but the guy does not have the capacity to enjoy these things. That's a sad thing. Got everything his heart's desires. He's arrived at the pinnacle, and guess what? For some reason, physical health, family disturbances, all sorts of problems, he can't enjoy the things that he has. The teacher underlines the importance of being able to enjoy what God has given. Verses 3 through 6. A man may have 100 children and live many years, yet no matter how long he lives, he cannot enjoy his prosperity and does not receive proper burial. Now, proper burial was important in those days. I mean, it was an honor. I say that a stillborn child, and he's not minimizing or trivializing a stillborn child. What he's saying is this: a stillborn child is better off than he. Now, here's how he describes why he's better. It comes without meaning. It departs in darkness, and in darkness its name is shrouded. Though it never saw the sun or knew anything, it has more rest than does that man. Even if he lives 1,000 years twice, that's 2,000, over, but fails to enjoy his prosperity, do not all go to the same place, and that's the grave. And so what is he saying? The traditional conditions for a wonderful life were many kids. Now that's not true today. For most people, don't want any kids. Okay, many kids. Traditional conditions for a wonderful life, a long life, prosperity and honor. That sounds good to me. I'm happy with that. But if a man has all these and cannot enjoy, what's the use of living? And that's Solomon's claim here. What's the use of living if you can't enjoy the things that you have? His life is miserable and unbearable. The teacher wraps up his discourse on transient wealth in verses 7 through 9. He says this. Let me just go ahead and read those verses and then I'll comment on them. All man's efforts are for his mouth, to satisfy himself, his physical appetite. Yet his appetite is never satisfied. What advantage has a wise man over a fool? What does a poor man gain by knowing how to conduct himself before others? Better what the eye sees than the roving of the appetite. Better what you have your hands, better what you have than wanting everything that you can't have. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. The reason humans work so hard is to satisfy their sensual desires. And sensual desires, I don't mean bad things. I like to eat. I get hungry. I like to drink. I get thirsty. Give me a Gatorade, okay? But that's why we work. Yet that will never satisfy the desire of our souls. The wisdom that should ensure wealth doesn't always do it either. So what advantage has the one who behaves himself? Why should I behave myself? The desire for satisfaction can never be fulfilled. Man is constantly searching for something to provide that satisfaction. And what Solomon says basically is this. If you're looking at wealth and all those kind of things, the stuff that you don't have that will satisfy, or you might have accumulated to satisfy your wealth, you're going to be disappointed. I would be disappointed. Let me read from my four quotes if I could. Neither instant wealth nor long-term wealth can accomplish all they promise. It is their failure to do so that sharpens our frustration. Those things do not provide what they promise. Like all false gods, money is incapable of satisfying the hunger and the thirst of the person who is devoted to it. Again, remember who's speaking. It's Solomon. He knows what he's talking about. One is truly satisfied only when he freely accepts what God has given. I like that one. Most people do not even have wealth and power, and they live on the fantasy that having it would result in satisfaction. The teacher bitterly denies that these things produce meaning in life. Why does the teacher keep on harping? And he does. He keeps on harping on the same basic thing. Because most of us, even though we give mental assent, still do not believe what he is saying. Most of you listening this morning do not believe what he's saying. Most of us. What do you mean by that? Look at my lifestyle. Look at your lifestyle. Why does he keep on harping at it? The same reason you tell your kids every day, did you clean your room? Did you brush your teeth? Did you do this? Because we are slow. We are slow. Maybe you're not. Okay, I'll grant you that. But folks, if my desire is to get more and to have more, and I think that's going to make me happy, if that's what I think will make me happy, I'm going to be very disappointed. There's a story in the New Testament, Luke chapter number 12. Two brothers are squabbling over their inheritance. Evidently, Dad died, and he had left big bucks behind. Didn't take it with him, and they come to Jesus and they said, "Lord, tell us how to divide this. I want to get my fair share." And a lot of times, that's a critical time. You find out what people really long for and desire at a funeral. Where people are angry and squabbling it with each other because they want more than they think they should have or whatever. Jesus replied, "Man," he's talking to the guy that's voicing the problem, "who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be careful." This is a warning, Jesus says. "Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." Jesus said that. Let me say it again. Your life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Solomon would say, You have food, and you have drink, you have a family. Enjoy what you have. Stop wanting everything outside of that. He goes on to tell the story of the rich man. Jesus calls him a fool. Fool, this night your soul shall be required of you. Everything I have, everything that I've accumulated, and I don't have that much. In other countries, I would be a rich man. Everything I will leave behind to someone else. Am I enjoying the life, and am I enjoying the things that God has given me today? I don't want to die a rich fool. I don't want to have to look back on my life and say, you know what? I am a miserable man because I had the wrong purpose. I still remember that big cucumber in the jar. It looked really good until I bit into it. Then it was yucky, as my grandkids would say. Folks, if you're looking for wealth to satisfy, if you're looking for the stuff that you own to make you happy and keep you happy, guess what? You're going to bite into it someday and you're going to say, this is yucky. I trust God will give you a good day. My prayer is that you would spend some time in Ecclesiastes and realize the priorities of life. What is the most important thing? If I had to start giving away things, including relationships, what would I hang on to desperately? What do I really long for? My relationship with Jesus Christ, my wife, my family. I think I could lose almost everything else, but there are things in life that are really important. What's important to you? And I think I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but what's important to you? What would you hang on to? What is life worth living for? Not grammatically great, but it'll do for now. Let me pray for you. Father, I do thank you for those who have listened. And God, I do pray that we would take the advice of Solomon, Lord, that we would not think that life consists of the things that we possess. So God, I commit these folks to you. I thank you for them listening. I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.